So we'll begin. I think we'll get to Cleo, but first I would love to talk about the beginning. You started as an artist, and then as a photographer. Well, who were your influences? Which artists did you admire the most and incorporate into perhaps your early work as an artist?
When I was young, I followed the lessons of l'École du Louvre. It was a school from the museum, Louvre Museum, not to become a curator, but to learn about looking at paintings. And meanwhile, I was impressed by some. I must say there is one artist who really incredibly impressed me was Picasso. Because when he started to be well known in the 50s, at the beginning, people were making fun, they would say, when a child would do a design, they would say, oh, he's doing Picasso, like, he was mocked. You don't believe now, but it's became a little bit more and more famous. But what I loved is that he changed his mind all the time. He invented different styles. He renovated himself, He never repeated like big artists like Braque got the feeling he made always the same thing. Okay, fine. But it was beautiful, but no, Picasso was inventing himself and new paths in his own work. No, that impressed me a lot, more than anything. I cannot say I've been, when you invited me, telling me what film had been inspiring me, I had to confess that I had seen hardly 10 films when I was 25. So it could not have been films that inspired me, but literature, painting and literature. I remember reading, with difficulties, when I read James Joyce, but I said, well, that's something has happened in the literature, Then I read Dos Passos, looking like a screenplay. I remember Faulkner, French, Nathalie Sarraute, these people, very, very so changing our look about what is literature. Say, what's happening to the cinema? And if I start something, I will do it from nothing, from nowhere, not from illustrating a book or illustrating comment un fait divers, something happening, real stories that you read in the paper. I thought you should create from nowhere or from my knowledge or my feelings. And because I've met so many fishermen, I started to work on this. But that first film, called La Pointe Courte, has been immediately recognized by Cinematheque, but was an absolutely total flop because very radical and very different, even though Philippe Noiret was in it, but it was his first film, so it's not as a star that it could help. And then I made some shorts, and when what they call the new wave, which has been called much later, started to bloom is the word, like films coming, young directors, a lot of young directors. At that time, I could take the train with them, and at that time they asked me to make a film. And I wrote an incredible screenplay, very expensive, in Venice, Italy, and set, and the producer and his associate Carlo Ponti said, hey, no, too expensive. You have to make a cheap film if you want to. So what could be a cheap film? I thought, should be not in different places, not too much costume, not too much sets. What about something happening in one day? And then I thought, what about happening in less than one day? In 1 hour and a half. And because the title is Cleo from 5 to 7, but it's exactly from 5 to 6:30, to be honest. While the 5 to 7, I don't know if you know that. You know Rendezvous, you know Carte Blanche, but do you know 5 to 7? It's a way of saying, well, a little love party in the afternoon. So, he's not here, he's in the 5 à 7. But so I use the expression, but it's not at all about fancy sex story. It's not at all between 5 and 7. It's 5 to 6:30.
And so when you made that first film, La Pointe Courte, it was initially, I read that it was actually something that you were doing personally for a friend, shooting that footage, that turned into, did it start more documentary and then turn into a narrative afterwards?
No. When I thought it should be in a short time, for the first reason was to be, not to spend too much money. Was the first point. But then, eventually, I thought of one strong feeling, because I always need one. I thought of fear. And fear, you know, you have some period of time, you have fear of cancer, fear of pollution. But at that time, I remember it was mostly fear of cancer. And I thought that when you wait for a medical test and you feel that you may get the cancer, which you may die, I immediately approached the theme with beauty. The film is really about beauty and death. Not that we like people to die, we don't like people to die, but there is some scandal in the beauty. And the scandal is the beauty should not be destroyed. And the theme came to me from a German painter of the 16th century, Hans Baldung Green. In one time in his painting career, he was involved in some occult something, I don't know what, but he started to paint wonderful blonde, tall blonde woman, naked, with a lot of hair, beauties. And near the woman is a skeleton. And the skeleton speaks to her ear. In another painting, the skeleton embraces her. And another one, he pulls her hair, comment on dit, tire les cheveux, pulls her hair. So that company of the skeleton was for me the theme. It's like, you know, the tender flesh opposed to the dry bones of death. But it's like a mental image, has nothing to do with the story. But I always need something in my mind which is like the key of the inspiration. Then you come to the story. The story is a blonde, beautiful woman, a singer, not so famous, but a singer. And you will see the film. And she expecting medical result. And we follow her from the moment she comes out of a storyteller, is that the word? Yeah. To the moment she takes a taxi, then she goes home, then she goes to the hospital. Now, what was my structure is that we will be with her during these 90 minutes, minute after minute. And you know that in the grammar of cinema, is that grammar? Grammar of cinema, you can ellipse time, you know. You touch a luggage, the minute after you're on a train. Nobody complains that it's missing when you walked into the station, you know. So we are used to jump from one thing to another. This is the way we do films, ellipsing a lot of things. Now, my challenge was to say, okay, we won't miss anything. In the time and geography, if she has 2 steps to go, we will have the 2 steps. If 8 steps, the 8 steps. If she crosses the room, all the steps of crossing the room will be there. So, no one ellipse in the time, and no one ellipse in the geography. The street, the taxi street, the street that the taxi follow, it's real. You know, when we did the DVD, we made a map of Paris and we showed the real way. And we even did more, because the film lasts 90 minutes, but we asked, it's a French DP called William Glenn. I asked him to do the comment on dit chemin, parcours, where she goes, with a motorcycle and very fast. So we did it at 5 in the morning a Sunday, from Rue de Rivoli to her house to the hospital, and he crossed all the red lights, and he was like a crazy. And behind him was a woman DP with a camera, and he did the whole thing 7 minutes. But it's frightening. But just to say that it's a real trajet. Well, we say trajet. Trajet? No. It's a real itinerary. It's not ellipse. Yeah, it's not ellipse. So these challenges I put to myself were intriguing, because then I said, then we have to know that it's the time. So we start at 5. And at 5:05, we have a clock, says 5:05 or 5:07. Sharp with Cleo from 5:15 to 5:18 or something like this. And it had to be precise with the real time. When there is a clock somewhere, we couldn't make a mistake, because if the clock say 6:02, we had to be sure that the story is exactly at 6:02, which sometimes I had to adapt a little in the editing to make it work. No, they made an experiment. I thought I would try. If it starts at 5, sometimes when it starts at 5 sharp, you can follow it, 5:10, 5:30. Some movies here that did it just to be checking on me. And people say, yes, it's not wrong, it's 6:22. And so it's interesting because I really followed that rule that I gave to myself. Now we have to go to the body of it, I asked a beautiful actress, Corinne Marchand, who really was a beauty. And I met her on a film of Jacques Demy, Lola. She was part of the girls in the nightclub of Lola, in L'Eldorado. She's one of the beautiful girls in the back, doing things like this. So that's how I met her, and I thought she was incredibly beautiful and very interesting actress. So she's Cleo. Now, you will certainly ask questions about why the film starts in color and then becomes black and white. Because she's a storyteller. And who knows if it's true or stupid, or the storyteller sees things, you will meet this, we do that, etc. And what is a storyteller? Telling you a story which is maybe true, maybe it's just utopia. So that was like not real life. And at some point you would see the woman say, are you sick? And Cleo say, yes. And for that moment become black and white. This is a real film. So it was an idea that the storyteller, the cards, are allegory in a way, but it's wrong. It's wrong or maybe wrong. So what is the point that I had in mind? The time, but I don't want to forget what I want to tell you. Corinne Marchand, no, she's a singer. To be the truth, if I were not what I am, I would have been a singer if I had a voice. I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world, to have a voice coming out of your body, beautiful voice. So I always admire voices. I love Edith Piaf and I love other singers. So I made her a singer. And I wrote the songs, the words, and I asked Michel Legrand, who was not so famous at the time. He has not done the Umbrella Cherbourg, who made him, Oscar winner, whatever, very famous. But at the time, he had started. He had made a beautiful score for Lola, Jacques Demy. So from Lola comes Corinne Marchand as the composer. So Michel Legrand did the music of the film. He did a beautiful job. And at some point in the film, she sings a song. And that's the only thing I want to say about that. The film is 90 minutes, exactly at 45 minutes. She sings a song which makes like a total switch in her behavior. You will notice that the whole first part, she's looked at. Is that it? Looked at. Mirrors, people admiring her, her lover, whatever. Absentees, but the musicians, everybody praises her as a beauty. And at that point of the film, you see that it's actually switched. And from that part of the film, she wants to be alone, and she's the one who starts to look at things, at people, how they behave, how they make their living. And so, for me, it was even a feminist statement that woman becomes real when they stop looking at themselves, when they start to look at others. They don't have to be naked, but she look at others, be interested in other people, discover how they are. And at that time, it's not written in the film, but it appears maybe later when you think about it. I should not speak about things that you will have in your thoughts in 2 hours.
Well, that brings to mind one thing I do want to ask about, before we go to the film. And I thought about this a lot too when you made your selection of Pickpocket. Because your narratives are often quite loose, and you create these sort of the style in which the story unfolds in its own time, but yet the things that you choose to focus on are so there's such precision to the things that you choose to observe as an artist. What do you do as an artist to hone that? How have you developed that for yourself? Because I think that's something for me that really sticks out, is sometimes, you know, the mix of documentary style with narrative, but always the themes, the people you choose to follow, and the moments you pick and what you shoot. It's so precise and beautiful and unique to what you do.
Thank you. But you know, the texture of reality is so interesting that even in a fiction, when you bump into something that you want to show, you will see at some point, you will see that she goes out and she sees some people make their money in the street, you know. There is a man, and you will see it. Shall I speak about it or not? Yes. So, a man that I met in the street, and how he makes his living is that he has a aquarium, I don't know, says that, aquarium maybe. And he swallows frogs. And he swallows frogs, and he swallows frogs, and you go, ugh. And then he vomits them. And then he makes his money like this. And I found that so strongly trivial. So over-realistic, you know. So far from the beauty, so far from the déshabillé of Cleo, from her hairdo and the whole thing. And I think that she has to meet something as rude as that, and the man makes his money like this, and other people do other things. And it's like what I say, when she goes out, she discovers, maybe she's shocked, but she sees things that she has not seen before. So even in a film like this, which has a theme, a character that we follow, especially that she's so selfish in a way that by changes of point of view, she will be able to share things with a friend, with a soldier, and she will even mix her fear with another fear. Not mix, but be together. That is a very important thing to me, that if we go to something better, is always with other people, going to them, you know, understanding other people. Dialogue is the main key of life, you know, understanding of other people's life and what they do. So, in a way, even it looks like it's only about a beautiful woman looking good and afraid to be sick, and she's entitled to be afraid, you know. It's such a terrible threat when they say, especially in those years, 60, cancer had very little chance as well. Not so treated as now, not saying that it's good, but I still have a friend who died from cancer, but much less than at that time. So it was like a threat of death, you know, which is upon her. And I feel it gives a, if you feel it, it gives a little pressure, a little string to that. Suppose very quiet, nothing special, no violence, one thing after another, little events. I'm not into big steps, big, high, you know, like strong. I remember once somebody spoke about me about screenplay, said, you know, we want a solid screenplay. And say, what about liquid screenplay? Because really, I love when the idea is that fluidity is the word? Fluidity. Because it doesn't mean that nothing is in it, but I have to take you by your hand, you know, and take you with me to meet Corinne and to meet her little stupid moments, and very important thing, you know, what his life is about. So different moments that builds what is life. And when you say that, I'm not realistic, but there is in reality enough clues for us to discover, understand, and understand where are our feelings. How do we correspond to things happening or to other people feeling? I guess it happened to you, like all of you, to meet somebody in a train and then somebody's crying. I don't know what it does to you, but I feel like crying. I say, oh my God, what is that person crying for? I don't even know. Maybe she just had the flu, but I feel like if somebody else has a pain that shows up, and allegres, and you wish to be part of it, it's just a way of being. And that enters in my way of filming. I try to go to understanding. When I made a film Vagabond, well, it goes at the contrary. Less and less understanding, less and less dialogue. and that kills her anyway. So we are always in relationship with other people, near people, family, love, or whatever, or other people, and the huge world in which there are so many people. So I'm fascinated by that, and it builds the texture that you found in my films.
Thank you. So I think before we end this conversation, we want to let everyone know that we'll be talking again before Documentour. So we hope that your experience with the films of Agnès Varda and her world does not stop here, that you'll see the other films that she selected as well.
But it's interesting because Cleo is the more well-known film of mine. And even in the platform, why do you choose? You know, it's always had more people asking for Cleo than for other films. And, well, I'm so proud that so many years after, 61 and now it's, 50 years, mostly wherever I go in any country, they know Cleo from 5 to 7, so I'm very proud. But then I support and try to bring the other film you chose, Jacqueline. I'm so grateful to pick it. It's called Documentaire, an emotion picture. It's only 65 minutes, but it's the saddest of my film. The more weak, not weak, but showing weakness, showing pain, showing how the world that you notice I see can be the contrary, can be aggressing you, can be, make you be stranger of yourself or stranger of the world. So I did one film like this, and if you're curious about the diversity of my soul, I invite you to see an emotion picture, the Documentaire.
Yes, please go see Documentour after this. It's not today, but look in the program guide. There are tickets still available.
I'm so glad you invited me. You made my days in Los Angeles exciting because you chose my film, I chose as a film. I have an exposition, an exhibition at the LACMA. And you picked the beautiful image of Cleo. I thought it was only for the poster. Then I found out the trailer. So you have seen the trailer of Cleo before seeing Cleo.
Yes, exactly. No, thank you for accepting our invitation. It's truly an honor. So please, yes.
Oh my God. Oh, okay. Ça y est. Merci. Ah, mon Dieu.